Alright, so boom. This channel, Delula with Lotus, this channel is where I come to share motivational messages from a spiritual perspective. And also, this is just where I allow myself to fully step into who I am. And I'm a very intuitive person. I'm a very inquisitive person. And I feel like I have a lot to share, and the reasons why I want to share is because I want to inspire people to live their best lives. I want to inspire people to step into all that they are. I want to inspire people to step into their power and really remember who the fuck you are. You feel me? But I like to use spiritual concepts because I feel that we all are spiritual beings. So we can't just look at things on one side. You can't just look at the physical. You gotta look at the spiritual side too. You feel me? And with this message today, I want to talk about, well, it's not like a specific topic, so I'm just gonna flow and start talking. So basically, right? So let me start off with words, right? I mean, dumb, I'm saying words right now, but there's certain words that I've been receiving from my spirit that has been motivating me in my own life recently, especially with the climate of the world right now. And I really feel called to share this with y'all because, like I said, we all have the capability of doing this. So, right, the first word, let's start on one side, which is not the good or the bad side, but let's just start on this side with the words of power. I didn't want to start with power, but we're going to start with power. That just came out. I'm flowing, so whatever. So, right, the word power and perspective, right? And all the words that I'm about to use are P words, which I feel like is why I feel so called to share it, because it's too synchronized for me not to say anything, right? So, power, right? When we are looking at what's going on in the world today and all the chaos that's happening, a lot of us feel powerless because we feel like certain people have more power than us, right? But truthfully, we all have power, infinite power within us. You feel me? You have the power to do anything. I mean, that sounds very cliche and vague. Of course, anything realistic and anything that fits within the laws of the universe and fits within the laws of the realm of earth that we're living in, right? Don't try to go and fly. You feel me? It's just we just have the power to do anything, right? Whatever you set your mind to, you have the power to do it. However, a lot of us are mistaken, and a lot of us think that our power comes from outside. A lot of us think that our power comes from the money that we have. A lot of us think our power comes from the people that we know and the status that we have and all of these outside things. But in reality, the most powerful source that you have is inside of you. And the reason why is because we are connected to God, right? We're connected to a God that's bigger than what you have known God to be. And I didn't even mean to say that. It just came through like that, right? Bigger than the God that you have learned about, right? Bigger than the God that you have been told is God. That being, that energy, that frequency is actually in every fiber of your DNA. Actually, literally. So when it comes to power, we've always had it, right? And right now we're in certain times where it doesn't seem that way. I mean, it's kind of always been like that, but I think we're in a very pivotal time in history where we're starting to see the shift and we're starting to really step in. This is a very pivotal time to step into your power that you have been created in, right? Not even what you've been born with, but that you've been created in, right? And then the next word that I'm gonna share with y'all that came to me, I really want the light, but you know what? I gotta keep walking, so it's whatever, right? The next word is perspective, right? And this is my favorite one out of all the P words, right? Because perspective is the tool of perspective is what's going to help us all create and step into the version of life that is in alignment with who we really are. Now, what do I mean by that, right? What I mean is that quite literally, anything that you perceive to be true is gonna be true. And the reason why is because we are so powerful. We have power, bro. So if you perceive something, that's what's gonna happen. That's what the truth of life is gonna be. And that's why, if you notice, that's why we all have different experiences here, right? Notice how nobody really lives the same experience. Nobody really lives the same life. Is because our perspectives are different, right? The people, I guess that's another P word, whatever. The people that are posing to be the most powerful, right? Or posing to have power over others, they love to plant perspectives within all of our minds, right? In all of our lives. They love to plant perspectives. And what I mean by that is that they love to basically persuade us and influence us to perceive life a certain way. You feel me? And it's strategic. It's actually a genius plan, because if you know that people have power, right? Everybody, every single person, if you know people have power and you know that perspective is what's going to play out within the realms, within the times, within time and space, right? Within life in general. And notice how mad P words is coming up. Whatever, cool, whatever. Keep going, focus, right? So they love to do that because they know that they can harness people's power by planting a perspective in their minds so that people can create the perspective that they want to create, right? But it's not like the end of the world, right? It's not like end all be all, because we have power. We have power no matter what, whether we're aware of it or not. When we become aware of the power that we have, we can actually tap in to the magic of life, and we can all actually start to, like I said, live the life that is most in alignment with who we are, right? So, perspective is very vital. Perspective is it's your superpower, literally. Like, for example, right? Let's say you're late, right? Let's say you're going somewhere. Let's say you're going to work and you're late for work, right? If you perceive the situation to be like, I'm fucked because I'm late. Things are bad because I'm late. I'm not where I'm supposed to be because I'm late. If that's your perspective, if that's what you keep telling yourself, you are creating that reality, right? Even if you are quote unquote late. And that's why this channel is called Delulu with Lotus, because it really takes delusion to choose a perspective. But that's where our power is, though, right? And then versus, right, that's one way to perceive you being late. But let's say you running late. Let's say you leave the house and you know you about to be late, or you perceive and you assume that you're going to be late. But you perceive it as, you know what, I'm going to get to work when I get there. I'm leaving at the perfect time. My ride there is going to be the perfect ride. The bus is going to come right on time. My train's going to come right on time. I'm going to get the seat that I like. My trains are going to be moving smoothly. You know what I'm saying? Everything's cool. But it takes a high level of delusion to like perceive your reality in that way when you're in the middle of it. Trust me, I've been there. Like, I'm the queen of, or I used to be the queen of being late, because I'm working on that right now, but I used to be the queen of being late. But once I started to say, you know what, I'm right where I'm supposed to be, I'm going to get there where I get there, and it's actually working out better because I'm leaving at this time, right? Even though I don't know how it's going to work out better, I just trust that it is, and I trust that I'm leaving at the right time. I'm going to get there when I get there. There will be times where I will actually make it on time, even though I left at a time that was quote unquote late, you feel me? But the reason why that happened is because I tapped into my power, and I chose my perspective. And we all can do that. It takes practice, P word. It takes practice, right? But It's possible. Keep practicing, right? Practice makes perfect. Keep practicing. Notice how you're going to start to experience life differently. You feel me? So now we're going to go to the other side, right? Because when I say the other side, you know how people like to say things are good or bad. On this channel, I don't really like to do that because that's a very limited way to see things. I just like to see them as two sides of the spectrum, right? So you got one side of the spectrum, which we talked about the word power and perspective, right? The other side of the spectrum and the P words, right? We got problems, right? That was another big word that came to me. And it's like, when you focus on a problem, right? Going back to power and perspective, right? If you focus on the problem, if you're perceiving problems, right? If you're using your power to fuel the problem by paying attention to it, by continuing to talk about it, by consuming your entire being around the problem, you're only going to create more problems. And we've heard this before in different ways, but it's actually energetic, it's actually spiritual, and it's actually metaphysical because of the power that we have, what we perceive is going to become reality. So if you're always focused on the problem, you're only going to experience more of the problem. So in all actuality, I think a lot of us have been taught to talk about problems, right? If we look at what's going on in the world, every time there is information being given to the masses, it's a problem, right? Because people love to plant perspectives in our minds so that we can start to create the reality that they want. You feel me? However, right, I'm not here to tell y'all to ignore your problems, because that's not a grounded way to experience life in my opinion, right? This is not a factual page. I'm not saying anything that's factual. This is all based off of my own intuition. You feel me? But I'm not telling y'all to ignore problems, because if you need to pay your bills, you pay your bills. You feel me? If you need to like speak up in a situation, if you need to like talk to someone and get through an issue with them, you need to talk to them, right? But we're going to go back to the word perspective. How are you perceiving the problem, right? Are you perceiving the problem as something that's taking your power away? Or are you perceiving the problem as something that you can tap into your power with? For example, right? Let's say it's about, you arguing with somebody and that's a problem for you, right? Somebody you love, you don't want to argue with them and shit, but you need to talk to them. If you're going to perceive the problem as, this is something that's taking my power away from me because I am afraid to talk to this person, or I feel like this person is not going to hear me, or I don't believe that we can come to a solution, whatever the case may be, right? If you're perceiving the problem as something that takes your power away, that's exactly what it's going to do, because your perspective is what creates reality. But if you were to go in that same scenario and say, hey, you know what? I'm having an issue with this person I love, and this is an opportunity for me to step into my power and speak my truth to them. And whatever, you have to be detached from the outcome. If it works out, we come to a solution, great. If not, great. Either way, I'm still empowered because I get to express my truth and I get to do everything that I can to come to a solution with this person, right? So, right, I feel like there's a lot of problems to pay attention to right now. However, we must not forget where the power lies. It's within us. Literally in every fucking cell in your fucking body. And it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're aware of it or not. And a lot of us are so enthralled in our problems and the problems of the world, and we're creating a reality that's reflecting these problems, and we don't even realize it because we don't know that we are the source of power. You get me? You feel me? So let's move on to the next word, which is pain, right? Pain. And this word also is like really big too, because the at the end of the day, whether we like it or not, pain is a part of this experience, right? As a human, you're going to experience pain. We can't escape it. If you try to escape it, you're just going to experience more pain, right? But pain, to me, in my perspective, can be such a beautiful thing, because pain can help us to just it's a pathway to certain emotions that can help us to grow and step more into our power, right? However, there was I had gotten like a download the other day. It was so beautiful. It was like, pain is a part of this reality, right? But don't allow the pain to take away from the joy of this reality, because joy is also just as important in life as pain, right? But if we allow our pain to consume us, if we identify with our pain, if we continue to focus on the pain, right? I've been saying the same thing over and over. We're going to just experience more pain. But at the same time, like I said before, it's a part of life. So like I said, we're not supposed to ignore the pain. We're not supposed to act like we're not in pain. If anything, feel your pain. Feel it fully. And then let it go, because there's joy as well. And I've observed, just people in general, within life in general, and also just within the current times right now, I've just observed how pain has affected people's reaction and people's perspective, right? Because if you are in a painful state of being, if you have allowed pain to consume you, when you're presented with a problem, you may react in a way that gives you a perspective that does not serve you. Freak, there's an ambulance coming, and it's gonna be super loud, so I'm gonna try to walk away. Whatever, it's cool, it's fine. Anyways, right, ignore that. Actually, I'm probably gonna pause it because that's type annoying. But anyways, I'm gonna just keep talking, right? So going back to pain, it's necessary. Don't ignore it, but don't absorb it. Don't swim in it. Don't marinate in the pain, because life has joy to offer you too. You feel me? And we can utilize pain to help us to, create a life that's more in alignment with who we are, by embracing it, by learning from it, because pain, it helps us to tap into emotions that we wouldn't tap into otherwise if we weren't in pain. And those same emotions and lessons can help us to evolve and grow into a version of us that is more wiser, stronger, right? Think about anything painful that happened in your life. Once you got through it, I'm sure you were feeling like you were on top of the world. I'm sure you have a nugget of wisdom from that experience that you have taken with you along the rest of your life. You feel me? That's the gift of pain, right? But like I said, back to the quote, pain is a part of this life, but don't let it stop you from experiencing joy, which is also a part of this life. So that's really the message today. It was kind of like a flow. It wasn't a main specific topic. It was more so of like a flow channeled message that highlighted certain words that started with the letter P, but also these words I feel like are important because they have the power to help us live in heaven or in hell, right? And I'm gonna go just do a nice little summary, and then we're gonna wrap it up, right? We all are so powerful, like insanely powerful. Like the same God, like look around. The same God that created all of this, and remember what I said earlier, not the God that you learned about. Because a lot of us have been learning about a God that is not really the God that created like the truest, most rawest, most primordial form of God. And I like to call that God Source, because Source is the source of everything, right? The source of my power, the source of creation of all life, the source of reality, right? Source. It's outside of me, right? Because all of this creation is bigger than me, but it's also within every fiber in my being. And I think that's such a beautiful thing, right? That God, that creative power is inside of you. You feel me? And you have the power and the choice to choose a perspective that is going to allow you to live your best fucking life. And you deserve to live your best fucking life. Why would you be born to be miserable? Why would you be born to create a reality for somebody else? Why would you be born to use the God-given power that you have to help somebody else fuel a reality that they want? That's not only greedy as hell, but it doesn't serve anybody else but them, right? So remember, you have power, and your perspective is what's going to help you to create your best life, to live your best life. And it takes delusion. You got to be crazy sometimes. The world can be falling apart around you, but you have to be like, you know what? I choose right now to actually see this working in my favor, right? I choose to see the good in the situation. I choose to believe that even though I don't know why this is a favorable situation for me, I'm just gonna believe in it because that's faith, right? That's the definition of faith from my religious people, right? We learn that faith is believing it before you see it, right? So we gotta utilize that. We gotta utilize our faith to see life in a way that uplifts us, in a way that honors us, in a way that fulfills us, in a way that makes life worth living. You feel me? Like, why not? If we have the power to create the reality that we want, why would we not create the best one, right? And then we got power, not power. We got power, perspective, the problems, right? Problems, this is life, right? Problems are going to show up at your front door, right? Or whatever the phrase is, right? Problems is a part of this reality. Pain is also a part of this reality. But if we choose to focus solely on the problems, solely on the pain, because of our power, that will be the only thing that we experience. And we don't deserve that. We don't have to be out here living like in a struggle no more. You feel me? We can start to experience more bliss. We can start to experience more fulfillment and more things that fill our hearts and souls, right? And I'll end it with the quote that I said a million times: pain is a part of this life. But don't let the pain take away from the joy of life, because joy is just as important as pain. That's the message. Y'all go have a good day. Feel me? I'm going to catch you on the next one.